Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain behaviors a woman carries, subtle, effortless, almost invisible, that don't just catch a man's attention. They take his breath away. These aren't tricks, they're not games, and they're not something you can fake. They're the quiet signals that make a man stop, stare, and think, who is she, and why can't I get her out of my head? Today, I'm going to reveal the dangerously seductive traits that make a woman unforgettable. Not because she tries harder, but because she shows up in a way that most people never have the courage to. Prepare yourself, because once you understand these, everything about the way you show up will change. When people talk about what makes someone truly unforgettable, they often jump straight to surface-level qualities, looks, charm, or the right outfit. But the truth is, the behaviors that captivate men on a deeper, almost irresistible level aren't superficial at all. They're rooted in confidence, intention, and emotional intelligence. They're behaviors that signal, without trying too hard, I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to show up as her. And that is where the real magic begins. There's something incredibly seductive about a woman who understands her own value, not because someone told her she's special, but because she decided she is. That decision radiates in every interaction. It shows in the way she walks into a room without scanning for approval. It shows in the way she talks, not rushing her sentences or filling silence with nervous chatter. It shows in the way she smiles with sincerity, not performance. A woman rooted in her worth gives off a presence that feels powerful, calm, and magnetic. Men can feel it instantly. It's not needy. It's not grasping. It's not manufactured. It's simply her truth. One of the most seductive behaviors of all is selective attention, not playing games or pretending to be unavailable, but genuinely choosing where she invests her energy. She doesn't turn her attention into a currency she's desperate to spend on anyone who shows interest. Instead, she gives it deliberately, thoughtfully, and only when something or someone moves her. A man feels it when a woman pays attention because she's intrigued, not because she's bored or lonely. He also feels it when she withdraws, not out of punishment, but because something doesn't align with her standards. That contrast creates a gravitational pull. It's dangerously seductive because it makes him realize her attention is something to be earned, not assumed. Then there's emotional self-control, not suppression, but mastery. A woman who doesn't let every mood, insecurity, or impulse dictate her choices has an air of strength that catches a man off guard. She's not easily rattled. She doesn't spiral into panic when things are unclear. She can feel something intensely without letting it consume her. She can communicate without attacking. She can express disappointment without drama. She can ask questions without interrogation. She can walk away without slamming doors. This emotional composure is incredibly alluring because it signals maturity, security, and self-respect. It tells a man, if you want access to me, you'll need to meet me here in clarity, not chaos. Another behavior that draws men in is playful confidence, not arrogance, not coldness, playfulness. That lightness that says she can laugh at herself, at him, at life. She brings energy into a conversation without forcing it. She uses wit like a spark. She teases in a way that's warm, not cutting. She can switch from serious to silly without losing her elegance. This blend of confidence and playfulness makes interactions feel effortless, and when something feels effortless, it becomes addictive. It makes a man feel good around her, and people chase the places where they feel good. Authentic mystery is another powerful force, not withholding information or being cryptic, but allowing layers to unfold naturally. A dangerously seductive woman doesn't dump her entire life story on someone in the first hour. She doesn't over-explain her past or justify her every choice. She reveals herself slowly, thoughtfully, and only when it feels right. This creates depth. It creates curiosity. It creates emotional pacing. A man doesn't just see who she is, he discovers her. And discovery is far more intoxicating than disclosure. There's also something irresistible about a woman with purpose. Not the kind who fills her schedule to avoid loneliness, but the kind who actually lives her life. She has passions that don't require applause. She has goals that don't revolve around anyone's approval. She values connection, but she isn't searching for someone to complete her path. She's already on it. That independence is seductive because it takes pressure off the relationship dynamic. A man doesn't feel like her happiness depends on him. Instead, he feels inspired to rise to her level, to stand beside her, not in front of or behind her. Her purpose makes her presence even more compelling. Boundaries may be the most seductive behavior of all, not the harsh, defensive kind, but the graceful kind that says, "I'm open, but I'm not available to everything." A woman with boundaries knows when to say no, when to speak up, and when to walk away. She doesn't overshare to feel connected. She doesn't tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. She doesn't make excuses for excuses. She holds her standards with quiet strength. And what's seductive about boundaries isn't the restriction, it's the clarity. It liberates both people. It tells a man exactly what she expects and exactly what she's willing to give. And clarity is attractive because it's rare. A deeply seductive behavior is certainty in communication. When she expresses what she wants without hesitation, it creates a powerful dynamic. She doesn't hint, hope, or wait for him to read her mind. She states her needs with calm confidence. She asks questions directly. She clarifies when something feels off. She compliments when she means it. She owns her desires without shame. This level of truth is disarming in the best possible way because it removes the guesswork from connection. Men are drawn to women who speak with intention because it communicates emotional intelligence and self-worth. There is also a quiet seduction in genuine presence. When she listens, she really listens. Not to respond, not to impress, not to strategize. She listens to understand. She asks thoughtful questions. She pays attention to details. She remembers things he didn't think mattered. Her presence makes the moment feel alive. It creates intimacy without effort, and intimacy, when paired with boundaries and confidence, is a dangerous combination because it leaves a lasting imprint. Finally, one of the most irresistible behaviors is self-validation. A woman who doesn't rely on male attention to feel beautiful or valuable carries a strength that's impossible to ignore. Compliments don't define her. Ghosting doesn't break her. Approval doesn't shape her. She appreciates love, but doesn't depend on it. She wants connection, not validation. That energy is profoundly seductive because it shifts the dynamic. When a woman validates herself, a man's attention becomes a bonus, not a necessity. And that is what makes it powerful. The behaviors that men find dangerously seductive aren't about manipulation or performance. They're about alignment. Being aligned with your values, your self-respect, your emotional strength, and your joy. These behaviors come from building a relationship with yourself first. And when you embody them, you don't chase, you don't force, you don't prove, you attract, you inspire, you create impact without effort. You become unforgettable, not because you were trying to be, but because you're living in a way that most people never have the courage to. And when you live like that, you naturally begin to embody a level of feminine power that feels rare in the modern world. It's not the loud kind that demands recognition. It's the quiet, steady, magnetic kind that makes people lean in without even realizing why. Men notice it immediately, even if they can't articulate what they're sensing. Your energy becomes a mirror that shows them not just who you are, but who they could become around you. That's why these behaviors are so dangerously seductive. They elevate the dynamic. They pull him upward. They challenge him without confrontation. They invite him to grow without pressure. What many people underestimate is how seductive emotional authenticity is when it's not weaponized. When a woman can express what she feels without guilt, without apology, and without expecting someone else to fix it, she becomes a force. She doesn't hide her vulnerability behind sarcasm or chase validation through oversharing. She reveals herself in doses that feel organic and meaningful. She can say, "I felt hurt by that," without collapsing into insecurity. She can say, "I really enjoyed being with you," without fearing it makes her look too invested. This kind of emotional honesty communicates a rare mix of bravery and softness. Men find it irresistible because it invites connection while still maintaining dignity. Another behavior that pulls men in is the confidence to pause. Not everything needs an immediate reaction. A woman who can take a moment, breathe, and respond intentionally radiates strength. Instead of jumping to conclusions, she asks for clarity. Instead of assuming the worst, she gathers facts. Instead of reacting impulsively, she chooses how she wants to show up. This quiet control over her emotional pace creates a strong sense of safety. Men feel more grounded around her, more understood, more able to be themselves. The seduction here isn't in the pause itself, it's in what the pause represents: maturity, emotional intelligence, and the kind of presence that calms chaos instead of adding to it. Then there's the seductive power of curiosity, a woman who asks thoughtful questions, who genuinely wants to understand how a man thinks, what drives him, what scares him, what inspires him. She becomes unforgettable. Not because she's trying to impress him, but because she sees him beyond the surface. Her curiosity signals that she values depth over pretense, and that she connects through understanding, not judgment. This behavior disarms defenses. It makes him feel seen in a way he rarely experiences. And when a man feels deeply understood, he becomes loyal in a way that logic can't explain. Another dangerously seductive behavior is emotional independence, paired with emotional openness. When a woman can give affection freely, but doesn't crumble without it, men are drawn to her like gravity. She can enjoy romantic moments without attaching her entire identity to how they unfold. She can be loving without becoming dependent. She can be warm without being cling. This balance keeps a man engaged because he doesn't feel smothered or trapped. It allows him to enjoy the connection without fear of losing his autonomy. At the same time, her openness keeps the experience grounded in intimacy rather than distance. It's the perfect tension between closeness and space, and it keeps attraction alive effortlessly. Self-awareness is another behavior that heightens allure. A woman who knows her patterns, her triggers, her strengths, her flaws. She carries an authenticity that's refreshing. She doesn't pretend to be perfect. She doesn't hide behind excuses. When she makes a mistake, she owns it. When something bothers her, she explores it. When she needs reassurance, she communicates it without shame. This level of self-awareness creates emotional transparency that is incredibly seductive because it eliminates the guesswork from connection. A man doesn't have to decode her. He doesn't have to navigate unnecessary dramatics. He doesn't have to play mind games. He can simply be present, because she has already done the internal work to be present with herself. Another behavior men find irresistible is when a woman can hold contrasting qualities with ease, when she can be strong without being harsh, soft without being fragile, confident without being conceited, independent without being detached, affectionate without losing boundaries. These contrasts create depth, and depth creates attraction. When a man senses that there is always more to discover about her, the layers, the shifts, the balance, he becomes invested. He becomes intrigued. He becomes inspired to explore who she is at every level. Grace under pressure is another form of seduction. When she faces challenges without collapsing, when she deals with disappointments without bitterness, when she navigates uncertainty without spiraling. A woman who maintains her dignity through difficulty becomes unforgettable. It isn't that she never struggles, it's that she doesn't lose herself in the struggle. She stays anchored, she stays centered, she stays aligned with her values even when the world tries to shake her. Men are drawn to that steadiness because it signals inner strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that supports a partnership, the kind that inspires respect before attraction. A woman who sets emotional tone also creates a powerful pull. She knows she can elevate the energy in a room simply by showing up in her truth. She doesn't wait for someone else to guide the mood or lead the interaction. She knows her presence is enough to shift dynamics. The way she speaks, the way she listens, the way she responds, it all creates a rhythm that others naturally fall into. Men find this irresistibly seductive because it feels like ease, like stability, like a kind of leadership that doesn't shout but still commands attention. A heightened sense of self-care is another seductive behavior, not because it's about spa days or routines, but because it signals self-respect. A woman who tends to her emotional, mental, and physical well-being sends a message that she values herself enough to invest in her own quality of life. She doesn't seek someone to rescue her from boredom or fill the void of an unfulfilled life. She brings wholeness into every connection. That wholeness is seductive because it means the relationship is an addition, not a fixation. Playful challenge is another powerful behavior. Not confrontation, not games, not power struggles. Playful challenge. The kind that makes him smile without even realizing it. The kind that sparks chemistry. The kind that tests his confidence, not his patience. A woman who can challenge a man gently, intellectually, emotionally, energetically, creates tension that builds attraction. She doesn't agree with everything, he says. She doesn't let him get away with lazy effort. She doesn't flatter him unnecessarily. She engages him. She stimulates him. She invites him to rise, not because she demands it, but because she inspires it. Another seductive behavior is the ability to be alone without being lonely. When a woman is comfortable in her own company, her energy becomes more selective, more intentional. A man can sense when she's with him because she wants to be, not because she needs a distraction or validation. This freedom, this self-sufficiency, is magnetic because it makes her affection feel real. It makes her presence feel chosen. And chosen presence is far more seductive than dependent attachment. Men are also drawn to women who speak with emotional clarity. She doesn't soften her truth to avoid discomfort. She doesn't exaggerate it to gain control. She says what she means and means what she says. Her words come from alignment, not fear. And when a woman speaks from alignment, her communication becomes her most seductive quality. It's direct without being harsh, honest without being cold, vulnerable without being weak. But perhaps the most dangerously seductive behavior of all is radiance, true radiance. Not beauty, not perfection, radiance. The kind that comes from self-acceptance, the kind that comes from choosing joy, the kind that comes from being fully present in her own body, her own life, her own truth. Radiance is the glow of a woman who knows herself deeply and still loves herself fiercely. And when she carries that, she becomes unforgettable in a way that transcends time, logic, and circumstance. She becomes the kind of woman a man remembers not because she tried to impress him, but because she changed the atmosphere around her simply by being who she is. And when she changes the atmosphere around her simply by being who she is, she steps into a form of magnetism. Hat doesn't chase, doesn't negotiate, and doesn't beg for attention. It commands it naturally. Not through force, not through games, but through an undeniable presence that makes people feel something they can't quite put into words. That's the moment she shifts from being someone he notices to someone he can't forget, because unforgettable isn't about perfection, it's about impact. It's about the kind of energy that lingers long after she leaves the room. A behavior that deepens this impact even more is her ability to express passion without apology. When she talks about something she loves, her work, her dreams, her creativity, her hobbies, there is a spark in her that lights everything around her. She doesn't shrink her excitement to look cool. She doesn't dull her enthusiasm to be accepted. She lets her passion be seen because it's part of what makes her alive. Men find this intoxicating because it reveals a woman who isn't waiting for life to happen to her. She's participating in it fully. Passion is contagious, but even more than that, it's revealing. It shows depth. It shows curiosity. It shows ambition. A woman who embraces her passions embodies a kind of seductive energy that is impossible to imitate. Another deeply attractive behavior is emotional resilience, the ability to bounce back without bitterness. When she faces disappointment, she learns from it without letting it define her. She knows that not every rejection is a reflection of her worth. She sees setbacks as redirections rather than condemnations. She understands that her journey is bigger than any one moment. This resilience creates an energy of calm strength. Men feel drawn to it because it makes the connection feel safe, steady, and grounded. He knows that she won't collapse at the first sign of difficulty, and that makes her presence comforting and inspiring. There's also something incredibly seductive about a woman who is intentional with her words. She speaks thoughtfully, choosing language that expresses her truth without creating unnecessary harm. She's not reckless, she's not careless. She knows the power of words, and she uses them to build connection, not destruction. Whether she's giving a compliment, addressing a concern, or expressing affection, her words carry weight because she uses them with purpose. Men feel this difference. They feel the sincerity. They feel the intention. They feel the respect. and that respect invites them to treat her with the same level of care. A woman who can enjoy the moment without needing to control it also creates a powerful pull. She doesn't obsess over outcomes. She doesn't micromanage conversations. She doesn't script interactions in her mind before they happen. Instead, she allows the experience to unfold naturally. She lets laughter take over when it feels right. She allows silence to sit comfortably. She embraces spontaneity without fear. This freedom in the moment is seductive because it creates a sense of ease. A man doesn't feel like he has to perform or impress. He gets to simply be. And when he feels free in her presence, he wants more of it. Then there's the seductive power of gratitude, not the performative kind that's said out of habit, but the kind that's felt deeply. A woman who recognizes and appreciates the small things, a thoughtful message, a kind gesture, a shared moment, radiates warmth. Gratitude makes her energy softer, brighter, more inviting. Men feel more valued around her. They feel noticed, they feel seen. And when a man feels appreciated without being objectified, he becomes more invested, more giving, more present. Gratitude doesn't just attract, it amplifies connection. Subtle confidence in her body language is another behavior that draws men in. She stands tall, not rigid. She moves with intention, not exaggeration. She maintains eye contact without trying to dominate. She uses her voice naturally without rushing to fill the air. She doesn't shrink into corners or hide behind her insecurities. She occupies space with ease. This kind of confidence isn't about seduction, it's about comfort. And comfort is seductive because it signals emotional and physical self-acceptance. Another powerful behavior is the ability to detach from what isn't aligned with her. She doesn't cling to potential. She doesn't force what feels heavy. She doesn't stay in situations that drain her simply because she fears starting over. She knows her worth too well to waste it. And when a woman chooses alignment over attachment, men recognize her strength. Not the loud confrontational kind, but the quiet, grounded kind that comes from self-trust. This self-trust is what makes her dangerously seductive. It communicates that she isn't afraid to walk away, and that makes staying with her feel like a privilege, not an obligation. Humor is another seductive tool that, when used authentically, creates unforgettable chemistry. She laughs easily, sometimes at him, sometimes at herself, sometimes at life's absurdities. Her humor isn't cruel or defensive, it's warm. It builds connection instead of walls. It creates memories instead of tension. Men are drawn to women who can laugh genuinely because it signals emotional health. It shows she doesn't take life or herself too seriously. It shows that she can turn challenges into stories and awkward moments into jokes. Laughter doesn't just bond, it intoxicates. There's also a seductive charm in a woman who can forgive without forgetting her standards. She knows that holding on to grudges poisons her own peace, but she also knows that forgiveness doesn't require readmission into her life. She can release resentment while still protecting herself. This balance of compassion and boundary is deeply attractive because it shows emotional wisdom. Men feel safe with a woman who can forgive, but they respect a woman who forgives without abandoning her values. One of the most alluring behaviors is the ability to be fully herself without explanation. When she embraces her quirks, her preferences, her interests, her humor, her taste, without needing approval, she radiates confidence. She doesn't water herself down to fit in. She doesn't pretend to like what everyone else likes. She doesn't alter her personality to win affection. She stands in who she is with pride. This authenticity is dangerously seductive because it's rare. It invites a man to be more authentic too, creating a dynamic built on truth rather than performance. Another subtle yet powerful behavior is emotional generosity, not overgiving, not losing herself, but offering kindness, empathy, and softness in ways that feel natural and sincere. She celebrates someone's wins without jealousy. She comforts without making it about herself. She offers encouragement without expecting praise. This type of generosity draws men in because it feels genuine, not transactional. It shows a heart that can give without losing itself. A woman who has mastered the art of emotional pacing is equally unforgettable. She doesn't rush intimacy. She doesn't jump into vulnerability too soon. She allows the relationship to unfold at a rhythm that feels healthy and sustainable. This pacing builds tension, curiosity, and emotional grounding. Men lean into this kind of slow, steady unfolding because it feels intentional and meaningful. Finally, one of the most dangerously seductive behaviors is simply her ability to remain aligned with who she is, no matter who is watching. Her values don't shift when she's attracted to someone. Her standards don't crumble under pressure. Her boundaries don't dissolve at the first sign of chemistry. Her identity doesn't get swallowed by the relationship. She stays rooted, consistent, authentic, and that authenticity is what makes her unforgettable. Because the most seductive thing a woman can be is herself, unapologetically, courageously, fully,